start with an invocation, and here to do that invocation is Lisa Bradshaw from Hillside Christian. Thank you, Lisa.
Let's pray. Gracious God, we come to you today and pray that the heartbeat of our city would be for you, and that as a city we would recognize the bond of humanity that ties us all together. Help us to care deeply not only for our nearest neighbor, but also for our neighbor across the opposite side of town. Lord, I pray that this would be a council and that we would be a people that weeps when our neighbor weeps and rejoices when our neighbor rejoices. Lord, as decisions are made by this council on the behalf of our city, I pray that the decisions would be made that would honor you first, knowing that such decisions would be for the betterment of this place that we call home. There are certainly subjects in our society that would divide us, but I pray that you would help us to be united in the legacy we are building. May our community choose to work together with our council and the various government entities to strengthen each other. Find us faithful in your eyes. We pray these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is public address, and at this time, prior to the meeting, we didn't have anyone signed up. Stephanie, are we still?
That's correct, Mayor. We have no sign-ups.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to agenda item 1A, which is reviewing the agenda for the regular meeting. Any attachments that you wanted questions answered or more information on right up front? Okay, nothing there. So item 1B is updates from council members serving on outside boards and commissions. The first one is Animal Management and Welfare Advisory Board. Dr. Sauer?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So when the board met, that would have been on Wednesday the 26th. One of the first things on the agenda was going down through, and it talked about the Animal Management Welfare Activity Report. And so we basically pretty much got the report for the entire year. And so the number of dog and cat intakes in a year is pretty astounding for the city of Amarillo. So we were just under 8,000 animals were taken in for the year. And whenever you begin to look at through the different things that end up happening, of course, the overwhelming majority of them are taken in because they're strays. But what I thought was also kind of interesting was surrenders. 1 out of every 5 animals were actually surrendered by the owners back to the shelter. And I don't know exactly what that means, but I just think that it's interesting that when 20% of the animals that end up being taken to the shelter end up coming from people actually surrendering their animal. I think that's kind of a bit of a disheartening, I would say, thing to see that they take on these pets, and then next thing you know, 1 out of 5 of them is going to end up in the pound. But looking through that, of course, everybody would end up would prefer to see the shelter become a no-kill shelter. But the first thing that we have to realize is what a no-kill shelter actually is. And a no-kill shelter means that it's a 90% release rate. Not 100%, just a 90% release rate. And the interesting thing is whenever we even look back over the live release rate in 2021, the total for the year ended up being 68%, which is abysmal. And then when you adjust there's a way that you go through that you adjust for the live kill, that rate at 71%. But what I would want people to also realize is that I think that the animal management welfare has come a long ways because a year ago, January 2021, the live release rate was 83%, and in February it was 86%, and in March it was 87%, and in April it was 84%. And so I believe that what's occurring at the shelter, they're doing a very good job at the very best that they can at working us to a point where we can actually be considered a no-kill shelter. But the thing that ended up happening that devastated was it began in June and it lasted for 6 months, and that was the parvo and distemper and what do they call it, panleukopenia that occurs in cats. And so the rate dropped all the way down to, even at one point in time, we were at 48%. And that was in August of last year. So that means that 52% of the animals had to be euthanized. And it was strictly, most of it was due to either parvo or distemper or panleukopenia in the animals. And so, so where we were dealing with COVID, the animal population in the city of Amarillo was dealing with the equivalent of that from June through November. And so now then we're currently back at a 70% as of last December, and I think that number is getting a lot better. So what they also said in a percentage-wise was 36% of all the euthanasias that occurred in 2021 were from parvo distemper or panleukopenia. And assuming that we didn't have an outbreak, the 2021's live release rate would have been somewhere between 78 and 81%. So if that gives you any kind of an idea of how tough of a year that it's actually been for AMW as they've been trying to take care of the things. Like a typical day, they gave us some information on that. So they took 19,311 calls for service. That's how many were answered in 2021. On a typical day, they have over 50 calls a day that are being handled by the officers and the people at the animal management and welfare. So whenever we look at the next thing that they talked about were department staffing, and so at this point in time they've got 4 new staff. We are still down 6 animal care workers, and we're also still down 4 officers from having animal control officer positions all filled. And so they're still being stretched pretty thin at this point in time, but they've got a lot of potential and they've got a lot of plans for how they're trying to actually get that taken care of. One of the interesting things is whenever we talk about, let me see if I've got the slide here about, I've got some of the figures down, but I don't know that I've got the slide with me because I really wanted to talk about this part where the veterinary services. Last year, they had 1,037 on-site surgeries since opening the facility. And then actually what you also have to understand is that facility didn't open until the 1st of April. So that's based upon a 9-month worth of work, and so we're going to see a lot more on-site surgeries occur, and that's one of the great things that came out of our Proposition 2 was the funding of all of the stuff out at all of the facilities out at Animal Management Welfare that are allowing those things to actually end up happening. They've also hired 4 part-time veterinarians out there at this point in time, and I know I've got to have that slide for that one. Oh, there it is, right there. So they've got 5 contract vets that we have approved, Dr. Lee, Dr. Geibel, Dr. Gisha, Dr. Miller, and Dr. Heinkel. And so now then, because of the way that that's actually being set up, we're going to have a lot more ability to be able to have all times covered and be a lot more successful as opposed to, I can remember when basically we had one full-time vet, if I remember correctly, was all that we had. And that's a pretty big struggle and a pretty big load to put on one person. But whenever you can do this and you've got 5 part-time that are able to cover all the things, then that's going to be really good. And, of course, you can't not talk about animal management and welfare without talking about the great opportunities that's going to develop over the next 3 to 4 years with Texas Tech Veterinarian School. That is going to be a game changer, I believe, for animal management and welfare here in town because of the ability to have those. We don't have any fourth-year students yet. They're all first year. But by the time they get to third and fourth-year students, now then we're going to have a lot of availability of people that are willing to work into part of maybe some of their teaching, and part of the things that they do at school will be run through our ability to help them to handle another aspect of veterinary medicine. So that part of it's going to be really, really good. They've got a lot of things going up on their community outreach. They have several things that are planned in 2022. So I think things are looking really, really bright. They've just redone the website, and that would be a good thing to go look at. And you can find that online at the City of Amarillo. If you go to Animal Management and Welfare, you'll be able to get a hold of that. It's given a lot more access to be able to see the animals that are there, the opportunities, all of that, and it's really good. I guess, honestly, the only downside that I saw was I really felt like that the Animal Management and Welfare Advisory Board was set up so that it would be a conduit between the citizens and the city and animal management to come up with the different things that they felt like need to be dealt with. I know that hasn't always worked well in the past, but you know what, the past is the past, and now it's the present. And we didn't have anybody get up to come speak at public address. And I think if there's ever a committee, this is one of the committees that, or advisory boards, that needs the public to come and to speak their mind and to say what is going on. And so that was a little bit disappointing for us to have that meeting, and we don't have people getting up to say what they feel like needs to be addressed or what's being addressed or those other ideas. And so I hope in the future that we end up seeing that we make it plain and clear that this is one of the best conduits, that if you want to see things change at Animal Management and Welfare, this is a great place to bring your ideas. So that's my report.
Excellent. Questions?
Yes. Councilmember Sauer, what are some of the reasons for the surrenders?
Well, there's lots of reasons for the surrenders.
I
think I'm going to let Victoria address that one if she doesn't
Come
mind.
on up, Victoria.
Thank you.
And then fill in whatever holes I left out, which I'm sure I left out many.
No, actually, the issue that we have with the surrenders is really a complete lack of education. There is an idea, we've historically been a rural or more rural type community, so a lot of that information on proper animal ownership has been our biggest issue. So when you see surrenders, we're working on a program now that we talk to them like, why are you doing it? What's happening? And then really trying to be more progressive and doing front end type, more instead of being reactive. Being proactive. So we've also had a pilot program with third graders to talk about this is what it means to own an animal. This is what it looks like. Just real basic so we can start with our younger citizens so we can eventually get there, because that is the biggest issue that we have, is people's just not understanding the seriousness or the responsibility it takes to have an animal.
And then
I was just going to say to Councilmember Powell's, to Mayor Pro Tem Powell's question, though, it's more difficult than I thought it would be. It's more expensive than I thought it would be. I don't know how to manage the animals. It's just like when your child is rambunctious, what's the same age, sick. You know, there's all of those different reasons pop up as reasons, but a lot of them are like Victoria was saying, just things that maybe legitimately someone should have known, and we want to make sure and help them know that. And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but this is a big move when you surrender an animal. When you surrender a family member, in essence, is what we're talking about. It's a big move, so we're trying to educate people. Yeah.
Even our field officers, historically, they would write out citations. Right now, if it's a first time, instead of giving that citation, our officers saying, hey, you need to do this, and try to give them the information and give them a warning, saying, hey, these are the requirements. This is how the law is. And so we're trying to do that. We're also working with Texas Tech Vet School on some behavioral videos, like if your dog's barking too much, or if it's, and they're putting some videos together, some YouTube videos that we can use with our public. Our court system also helps in that if you do get a citation and it's, $200 worth of violations, they can waive that and go to an animal accountability class. It's much like a defensive driving class, and we've partnered with Amarillo College, and if they successfully complete that class, then the judge can dismiss all the fines. So we're really trying to work on the education piece.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then just one other question, Ms. Victoria, that is, you have 10 vacant positions right now, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's all I have.
And so if people want to apply for those positions, they're posted?
They are posted, and we've recently looked at kind of a different model of the traditional full-time, hoping to maybe garnish some of our college students and high school students on where we have some part-time animal care workers, which are like kennel workers, and to make those hours more flexible so that maybe we can cover those shifts a bit. Because people don't understand, regardless, they're weather essential, regardless, snow and rain, it's 365 days a year. The animals have to be taken care of.
All right. Any other questions for Victoria? Thank you, Victoria. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else for Dr. Sauer on that report? Okay, next item is local government corporation. I'm going to start with Howard, and then we'll let Cole fill in any blanks.
We had a good meeting, I think it's this last week. We've got 3 new members, and one of them is Cole Stanley. And I want to see if he wants to report on this.
Okay, you're giving the baton back to, I was out as a courtesy. I thought, well, it was his first meeting. We wouldn't make him do the report, but apparently that's not the consensus.
Howard tees it up. I don't mind swinging at it. So, so my first meeting, LGC, so good meeting. You've got, basically we were able to rehire our chair or president and vice president. So those 2 positions stayed the same with Michael Hanning and Alfonso. We do have our 3 new members. We had a good update. So I'd tell you Hodgetown, a good update from Mr. Evans, or I'm sorry, Enzer, right? Tony Enzer. Good update from him on kind of what he's working on, what's coming down the pipe, what else you have to look forward to, schedules and so on and so forth. Also some housekeeping duties with just field operations and structures and facilities. And then we were also given a couple of other updates as far as real estate and kind of what's available. The embassy was there. They had a rep, and so getting to hear kind of their pricing on parking garage and things like that they're looking at and that they're currently doing. And then we were able to do an overall budget review, which was helpful. And so I'll be getting more budget review and getting up to speed on some of that stuff. Felt like it was a good, productive meeting. Also felt like we had some pretty good discussion, good group of people that I think will keep everything on the table, look at all options, and really help that entity along in making good decisions moving forward.
Good report. I would like to add in the hotel, the original agreement, and Andrew Freeman might jump on me if I mess up here, but there was an agreement that occupancy of the hotel had to be a certain percentage, or the city would have to make up some of that lack of revenue. And so we've gotten through, we're finished going through the time frame of that, and we have not had and will not have to put any money in from the city. Is that right? So I thought that was good. In other words, the hotel has done very well in their occupancy. That's all I got.
Any questions?
Actually, the one thing that I'd say about that is just how big of a deal it is that we made it through the guarantee period without ever having to pay that, especially considering 24 months of COVID. And the hotel still performed at a level that kept us from having to match a guarantee that they had. So I would say that's some very smart planning on the part of everybody.
Yeah. And that was previous council that did that. What was LGC before we were all on council that made that. And it was an uncertain arrangement to make at the time because we didn't have a hotel downtown that could handle our convention business. So well executed. Okay. Moving on to the next item then. Item 1C is the quarterly budget update.
All right, Mayor, we have Director of Finance, Debbie Reed, here to give us the update and answer any questions council has. Debbie?
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. So this afternoon we'll be reviewing the first 3 months of the fiscal year, the current fiscal year, which that is October through December. And we always like to start out with general fund. So on this first slide, you'll see the general fund revenues. And you can see that through December, the revenues are budgeted at $62.1 million. Actuals are coming in, they came in at $60 million, which gives us a variance of $2.1 million short of budget through December, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. So you'll see this will identify the various revenue sources, and you'll see the main reason that the budget came in lower is due to property tax revenues. Keep in mind this is a timing issue, and this year was a little different. We had the voter approval tax rate election, and that delayed the tax bills going out till about the middle of November. So that delayed collections a little bit, but all tax bills were still due by February 1st. So I'm pleased to say that through February, the collections are 97.1% collected. So we're right back on track with property tax revenues. Just looks a little odd through December. Then you'll see sales tax, and I'll talk about sales tax, hotel occupancy tax, and gross receipts tax in more detail on the next slides. But the other items are listed there for you, just slightly over or under budget through December. So let's look at sales tax information next. And Andrew will give more information in his report, but this just shows that sales tax is coming in strong again for the first part of fiscal year 22. And we're 15.32% more than last year and 19.08% more than budgeted. So we have $2.4 million more in sales tax revenues through the first 3 months of the fiscal year compared to last year. We like to show you this chart for reference. This shows you the 10-year history, and you can see we just had those 2 blips. 2017 was slightly less from the growth perspective, and then 2020, of course, was the impact of COVID. And as we've talked before, Amarillo rebounded very well after COVID. So we were 53.91% above through 2021 than the previous year. This chart gives you the details of the hotel occupancy tax. So we're coming in strong, 34.4% more than last year and 30.4% more than budget at this point in the year. This chart shows you, it's again provided for your reference, this shows you the hotel occupancy tax revenues and then compared to the occupancy in the local hotels. So the bar charts are the revenue collections. The blue is 2021 actual, red is 2022 actual, and the green bars are 2022 budget. So you can see that we're exceeding budget there just like we stated. And then the bar chart, the bar lines, the purple is last year. And the blue line, which is just barely starting there and kind of following the same track as last year, is the 2022 occupancy rates so far this year. The next category is gross receipts business tax. We just include this slide so you know the categories of the gross receipts business tax that we collect and what the rates are. But the actual revenue so far through December, we're ahead of budget, $235,000 or 5%. The main categories are gas and electric. Gas is slightly ahead of budget, about 2%, $10,000, and electric is 14% or $297,000 ahead of budget. For general fund expenses, budget through December is $53.2 million. Actual came in at $48.9 million, so we have a variance of $4.3 million, spending less than budget. So most of the areas are on target, but there are some key areas under budget. Of course, personal services is one of the big ones, $1.2 million under budget due to vacant positions. And you just heard Victoria say that she has 10 vacant positions, and that is an issue across all city departments, along with other employees in the city of Amarillo, really around the nation. We're all having challenges hiring people and filling positions. So that's a big part of it. Our supplies are actually about $1.3 million less than budget through December. And what I observed when I was looking at the line items is a lot of it is supply chain issues. So we have things that we're needing, but it's hard to get it right now. So, and we're all facing that in our businesses. And then the other category is contractual services is $1.6 million under budget. That is an area where we budget for repair and maintenance and the parts that need to go along with that. And if they're not needed, we don't spend it. It's there in case we need it. So, but we do see that things will probably level out throughout the year, depending on how the supply chain issues go and hiring staff goes. But we are $4.3 million under on spending. So this next slide will show you the net variance. So $2.1 million less in revenues, 4.3 less in spending, and then that gives us a positive net variance of $2.2 million through the month of December. So we do expect that to level out throughout the year. So at this point, it's good that our spending is less, revenues coming in a little bit slower, but we should be right on track by the time we get to the end of the year. So utility sales, we'll look at that next. So the city has utility sales in the general fund, water sewer fund, and the drainage fund. In the general fund, we have solid waste fees, and that's pretty much right on target with budget. In the water sewer fund, water sales are ahead of budget, 5%. We haven't had any rain, right? So that's helping us out on our sales side, consumption. So, and sewer sales are ahead of budget, $124,000. And water was $731,000 ahead of budget. Drainage is pretty much right on target, a little bit less through December, just $37,000 less than budget. We always like to show you this chart. This just shows you the water sewer trends over the past 10 years, sales versus precipitation, and it's just provided to show you the impact of those dry years and the wet years, what it does to the consumption and to the sales into the water sewer fund. The last category is our health insurance. We always monitor our medical claims. That's something that can fluctuate drastically from year to year. But as of the end of December, through December of this year, we're slightly over budget, $267,000. That's not uncommon in the first quarter of the fiscal year, which is the last quarter of the plan year for the medical insurance. So it's not uncommon to be at that point. But we will monitor that throughout the year. So that's our medical claims. And we do show you that history. But with that, I would answer any questions that you might have about the first quarter.
No questions? Okay.
Basically a good report.
Yes, and excellent. Again, you guys have worked very hard to hone these tools, these dashboards for us over the last 3 or 4 years, and I think you've gotten very efficient at it. We just downloaded a lot of information in a very quick amount of meeting time, so I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thank your team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is our quarterly sales tax update.
Sorry, for those listening, Andrew Freeman, Assistant City Manager.
So I've got the one slide up that you have in your packet. So that covers the major industries fiscal year to date. So this is through February in comparison to what Debbie just went over. What you can see is almost all our main industries are seeing double-digit increases, with the exception of wholesale that's down just under 3% for the fiscal year. What I've added to this slide, just to give you an idea of what our ZacTax software that collects all our confidential data can share with us, they've been tracking inflation rate as well. So you can see there that it's at 9.15% inflation rate. And what they try and show us is, adjusting for inflation, they show us, well, if we didn't have inflation, we would actually have been down $59,000 in collections compared to last year. So that's something we're going to keep an eye on, just as inflation goes up or comes down, what kind of impacts it has. That's actually the highest we've seen on the inflation rate. The previous, going from January back to August, it went from 8% down to high 7% range. And then back to about April is where it was 1%. March was 0.5%. So you can really see the difference on how it adjusts those numbers. In order to find a month where we actually saw a negative adjustment in our collections, we would have gone back to April 2020, May 2020, when the pandemic started, when we actually had negative sales tax collections. So it made a lot of sense. But just know that's something we're tracking as well, the inflation impact. As far as our taxpayers, I also want to share a little more data as far as how many taxpayers we see. For February 2022, we had 7,914 taxpayers in our database. They fluctuate by month because not all have sales each month. That's the highest we've seen. January 2019, I had to go back. That was the first time we didn't have over 6,000. It was just over 5,900. So we're usually in the mid 6,000 to 7,000 taxpayers. Which brings me to another interesting tidbit for you as far as our collections. Our top 100 taxpayers bring in over half of our collections. So I've also run a report in the system, since that's 1% of our taxpayers, a little over 1%, just to see how are they performing since they have such an impact on our collections for our budget. Fiscal year-to-date performance for all top 100 taxpayers combined, they're currently up 14.62% compared to last year. So, which makes sense because we're seeing overall collections up about that high as well. As far as some of our major retail, just to let you know where they stand, non-store retailers, those are our online sales companies, up 16.31%. Building materials up 20%. Clothing and accessory stores up 27%. Sporting goods, hobbies, and bookstores up 18%. So all double-digit figures. As far as food industry is concerned, our full-service restaurants are sitting at 29.22% increase, and limited service, or more of our drive-through type restaurants, 11.57%. So we've really seen that shift to people spending more dollars in this. Our labor force statistics, you can see on the slide, we've seen the unemployment rate in the year, December 2021, down 1.5%, so we're sitting at 2.9% unemployment rate. We've added in the year 2,400 jobs to the labor force. And then as far as impact by industry, we see manufacturing ended the year up 2.1%, trade and utilities up 3.1%, professional and business services up 8%, and leisure and hospitality is up 11%. The only two that saw a decline at the end of the year was the construction category and financial activities. So overall, we're just seeing the economy still being very strong as far as jobs are concerned and adding new jobs. So happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Councilmember Stanley?
Yes. Andrew, can you tell us on the top 100 payers? Mm-hmm. I know that's several different sectors.
It is.
Did you see any, like, as a sector that stood out that was down?
That was down? I'd have to go back and pull exactly who's in that 100%. I could get that more specific for you, but the majority are all up except for that wholesale category. I'm just not sure if wholesale's in that top 100 or not, but okay. I could do a little more research for you and break it down by
And on the average,
sector.
Did you say that was 14%?
14% overall of those top 100 as far as overall collections being up.
And so by taxpayers, you mean businesses that are collecting?
Collecting, yes. Any sales tax collecting entity.
I was just curious if there was any supply chain that was just that was down that skewed that number, but that would catch up as things trickle into town.
I can do a little more research on that. So like top 100 is also going to include like the city with our trash sales tax. That's part of that number. You're going to see places like Excel that are large producing companies as far as sales tax is concerned. But it'll be a variety. A lot of it's retail, but there's going to be some mixed in that are different categories. But I can pull that research for you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Next item on the agenda is item 1E, which is to discuss a solid waste update. Mr. City Manager.
All right, Mayor, we've got Director of Public Works, Donnie Hooper. Also have Assistant Director Alan Harder coming up. So Donnie's going to walk through a very broad overview of what's going on in solid waste, answer any questions you've got. Got a lot of really exciting initiatives going on, addressing what have been some challenging problems over the years, things that I would say nobody really has a good answer to, but we are putting one of the better answers forward that I've seen. So, Donnie.
Yeah, that's a great way to lead into this. We want to be the leaders. I mean, we want other cities looking at us and saying, hey, what are they doing to solve those problems? And that's kind of where we're headed with this presentation today. Kind of want to bring you up to speed on solid waste operations. As he mentioned, some of the challenges we're facing. Today we're going to talk about some background information on solid waste operations, description of some of our equipment, service delivery, illegal dumping statistics, front yard collection statistics, our roll-off program update for you, and also a camera program overview, as well as some solutions, as Jared mentioned, that we're going to be talking about as we move forward. I do want to talk about one thing in particular, and that is our solid waste division or department has gone through some changes here recently. Ricky Rivera is here. Raise your hand, Ricky. That's Ricky right there. We call him Big Rick. He's also my bodyguard as well. You can tell by his size. But Ricky is now our solid waste superintendent. He has 160 positions underneath him. Ricky has 18 years of experience in solid waste. He brings a lot to the table. And the thing that I love about Ricky is he brings a great attitude to the table. He brings an attitude of wanting to get things done. He's hands-on. He has been in every single position that you can be in solid waste, starting at the bottom, working his way all the way up to the top. So he understands how everything works, and I think he's going to be great for us there. Underneath that, there's 117 positions in solid waste collections. That's under Rocky Terry as the assistant superintendent for operations. We have a vacancy in solid waste disposal for the assistant superintendent there, and that's because Ricky vacated that spot to take over as the superintendent. We should have that filled, I'm thinking probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks we should have that done. Also, just want to mention, I brought some of my staff here too. Miranda Ashley and Micah Padilla are here. And the reason we did that is we had the other day, we were in the office and we were talking, and it turned into a Civics 101 class. And it made me realize that sometimes we don't bring our office staff to things like this so they can see the inner workings of the council and what's going on. So I said, you want to come? And they said, yeah. So here they are. So they get to watch all this today and see how you guys operate as well. On the next slide, this is particularly for Howard. It has a lot of pictures, and it has a lot of great things in it. So Howard always wants pictures. Well, we talk a lot about equipment, and we say things like ASLs and front loaders and side loaders, and we use all these things in our everyday language, but sometimes you don't know what those look like. So if you look at this chart here, this shows you what each of those pieces of equipment looks like, and what their purpose is and what their cost is to kind of give you a better idea of what we do in solid waste. Just left to right quickly, the ASL trucks, that's the ones that go out and pick up the poly carts. Those cost about $360,000 each. We have 4 of those. We have 1 of them on order. That will make 5 total in the fleet. That's the last order we have of ASL trucks to finish and complete our goal of poly cart routes. Our brush trucks, we have those next to that. We have 6 of those. We have 2 chippers now, but we do have 4 on order. So our chipper program is going to be back in place. I think we answered that question at a recent council meeting. But we should have that fully back up and operational within the next month. Our goal is to have it before we get to Earth Day and Cleanup Day to have that fully operational. Our knuckle boom trucks are beside that. You can see that they pick up 35 loads a day. That's mainly for our front yard collections and our assistance in alley cleanup. Those are about $135,000 each. And then we have our side loaders. We have 48 side loaders in our fleet. This is for mostly residential routes or some commercial routes that are serviced by that as well. We have 6 of those that are spares that are used whenever we have one that's down in operation or it's in the shop having some repairs, et cetera, to fill in for that. They service the 18,000+ dumpsters and 68,000+ accounts that we have in residential. The rear loaders are next to that. They're the hand collection routes. We only have 1 hand collection. Actually, there's 1.5 hand collection routes that are left. One of those that was existing when we started the program for ASLs back in 2018. Our front loaders are commercial collections. They do about a little over 5,000 accounts there. But you can see the numbers of $14 million worth of equipment in solid waste collections. There's another $8 million in equipment and disposal. So about $22 million worth of rolling equipment to service the solid waste department. That does not include pickups and light service trucks as well. So it's quite impressive, the work that they get done with the amount of equipment that they have underneath them.
Donnie, I have a question. If
Yes,
people
ma'am.
have front cart, roll-out carts,
The polycarts.
Which truck does those?
That's the first one, the ASL trucks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's the polycarts.
Okay.
Yeah, we call them automated side loaders, ASLs.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We have, just like Debbie mentioned a moment ago, and everyone's really mentioned, we have some staffing challenges in solid waste that really affects us. We know that we've experienced a shortage of employees, and just like anybody else has, but we know that our service delivery issues are directly related to that. You know, we can't stop picking up residential and commercial trash. That's our number one priority out there. So we know we've had some challenges with that. We had some solutions that we've put to the table. We worked with management, of course, and with Mitch and his crew to raise the minimum wage of CDL pay from $14.75 to $16 an hour. That has helped a little bit. We think that we'll probably see that help more as we push forward. We're starting to see more and more applicants come in. Sometimes they apply, and then by the time we get to the interview part, they've already dropped out and they found another job. So we're addressing that, but we think that's one thing that's really helped. And the second thing that we've done is we had separate equipment operator positions. We had equipment operator 1s and equipment operator 2s that had specific tasks that they did in solid waste. So what I decided to do was take all that, combine it into one position. Now we have solid waste equipment operators. That's what they do. You may be, your primary function may to be in a side loader, but by the end of the afternoon, you may be helping on front yard collections in a knuckle boom truck. So we're cross-training all of our employees to be able to do any task in solid waste, and that's one of the ways that we're overcoming that challenge. Some days we have 10 to 12 open routes in residential. They have to be covered by the end of the day. We have to run those routes. So we're moving people around, making adjustments, and change is always hard. But we're in the middle of that process right now, and I think it's going to be something that's going to benefit us, especially heading into the summer. On the next slide, you'll just see, this is just a look at our staffing. We have 160 positions in solid waste. We have 125 of those filled. And the biggest area that we suffer in is equipment operators. We're at 75% right now. We have 59 of 79 drivers, our equipment operators, and that makes it really a challenge for us. But again, some of those solutions that we're putting forward helps us with that, and I think we're seeing a big difference. By the way, we did in the administrative side, it says 2 of 3. We've actually filled that position, so that one is 3 of 3 right now. One thing that we don't suffer with, which some other departments can't say the same, is our utility workers. We've done a good job of hiring utility workers and keeping them in their positions. On the next page, you'll see a reduction in illegal dumping. This graph represents a calendar year of illegal dumping work orders that are remaining on our schedule at the end of each month. We know what our busy seasons are. When we get to April, we know that that's going to ramp up, and we're going to start to see a lot of illegal dumping. But the reason I wanted to put this chart on here is because we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when I was up here when Councilman Sauer asked a question about 1,200 to 200, that number that came out in the report. What that is if you'll look at September, where we had 786 remaining work orders in September of this year, well, 21. Go back to 20, we had over 1,200 there. That's a 35% decrease in just that 1 month comparative month. But if you look across the board, every month is seeing an overall decrease compared to the year before. So I think we're making a difference in some of our efforts in reducing the illegal dumping that's out there. And we have some more solutions we'll be talking about as we move forward. 2 weeks ago, we were at over 200 in February. As of this past week on Wednesday, we're at 75, and I would bet that by the time the report comes out this Wednesday, we're going to be comparative to that number in March of 35 or less. And that puts us in a good spot and ready to go as we move into the busy season. On the next side, you'll see our curbside collection work orders. Those, June is always going to be the biggest month there, 3,768 front yard collections, but we know that program is starting to really gain momentum. As we said, our trucks, they can do about 35 per day in each of those trucks. So when they get to June, they're hitting it pretty hard and sometimes having to work some overtime to keep those in place. We are hitting our 48-hour window. Most of the time, about 94% of the time, we pick those up within 48 hours, which is our goal. The only times that we don't is when we see an ice storm or something that puts us behind, and we have seen those. On the next slide, this is just a comparative slide. I like to look at this one weekly. This just shows us where we're at if you compare our front yard collections versus our illegal dumping alley cleanups. Now, these are actually cleared, completed work orders. But it just shows us that the program that's the most successful right now is curbside collection, and that's what we want to push. That's what we want to educate people on, is putting that out there. Next slide. Some of our solutions that we've come up with, and we say we want to be the trendsetter, and we do. Education opportunities are number one for us. We know that there are opportunities that we can reach the public. We're finding out when we talk to them, they say, Well, I didn't know that was illegal. Well, that means we need to educate them more. So we're going to be working with communications to come up with some things as we head into the spring to promote our cleanup events and to promote just not putting things where they don't belong and putting things where they do belong. Our use of technology has really, I can say the staff behind us over here have done a great job of finding ways to use technology to dig into the data to see what we actually have out there so that we can make improvements. Cross-training of our solid waste equipment operators, we've already discussed that. And this one I want to talk about for just a second, equipment for driver-activated reporting through GPS. We have had, and the question has come up many times, is our staff reporting everything that they see out there? The answer to that is no, because it's difficult to drive a trash truck, operate all the controls that are in it, stop, get a piece of paper or whatever it is, and write down whatever you have going on. On a day-to-day basis, that's just difficult to do. So I challenged our fleet services group with an idea, and I said, what if we had a push button that we could just activate our GPS that says, here's a location, and then somehow we could look at a report for that. I said, see what y'all can do with that. Well, Glenn Lavender and Jason Jupe went to work on that, and I can say that they're being installed as of last week. We have a red push button that when they push it, it activates. It sends a signal to our GPS system and says debris pile. So we can now, once we start collecting that data, we get them in all the trucks, there's 48 of them, we will be actually able to go back and take that data, look at it on a map, pull reports, put it in an Excel spreadsheet, and see exactly where we have all this illegal dumping. Now, it may make our numbers go up, but at least they're true, accurate numbers that we can go address. Glenn, by the way, was nominated into the Hall of Fame for Government Fleet yesterday. We found that out yesterday, and I said, well, that's why we're getting these things done, because we got people that are the caliber of Glenn Lavender. So we're passing that around, telling everybody to vote for Glenn for his government fleet nomination for the Hall of Fame. I think that's pretty cool. So I wanted to mention that.
Donnie, this is a statewide Hall of Fame?
It's a nationwide
I knew
Hall
that.
of
It was
Fame.
a leading question.
Yeah, sorry. Did I say statewide? Is that what I said? Yeah.
To be inducted into the National Fleet Managers Hall of Fame, and it's somewhat of a niche Hall of Fame. However, baseball is a niche.
Yeah.
Football's a niche. When you're inducted and recognized by your peers as a candidate to be considered for induction into their Hall of Fame, it's a big deal. I just didn't want to undersell it. That's a big deal. I've never worked with anybody who was in a Hall of Fame. So I want to be able to say I work with Glenn Lavender, who's in a Hall of Fame. So
vote for Glenn.
Cool.
That's the campaign. Yeah, and it's well deserved too. And thank you for correcting me on that. It's nationwide.
I wasn't correcting you. I just wanted more information.
Yeah.
I wanted to really sell it.
And not only that, but it's also recognized by the American Public Works Association, which in our line of work, that is the association you're a part of. It's a nation. Not only that, it's in 52 countries, I believe, where APWA is. It's a huge organization, so it'd be recognized there as well. And he is well deserving of that honor. So we look for that improvement because of the innovation, the ideas, the things that they've actually put into play. I think we're going to see a big change in what we're doing there. So thanks to them for that. Our neighborhood cleanup initiative, we've talked about working with Emily Kohler and her group in planning. We've developed a great relationship with them, and I think we saw the fruit of that labor in the last cleanup that we had. It was tremendous. We had great success. I don't think any of us were satisfied with it. We want to do better on Earth Day, which is coming up in April. So we're working already with Emily. We had a planning meeting with them last week on how we are going to approach that and what we're going to do with it, and I'm excited about it. The next item I'm very excited about, too. Alan Harder behind us here is the Public Works representative on our Bloomberg Initiative program, and that is a tremendous opportunity for us to be able to have ideas that we probably in a million years wouldn't have ever come up with. The collaboration of this group, he comes away excited every time he meets with them, and they really haven't even gotten into the nuts and bolts of illegal dumping yet. And so I think that that's going to be a great thing. We're looking forward to what we're going to see come out of that, and Alan just does a great job. By the way, he was the interim superintendent over solid waste for quite a period while we were looking for our next superintendent, and he'd never done a job like that and walked in there and acted like he'd been doing it for 100 years and made some improvements. So I'm very proud of him as well. And our camera program enhancements, I'm going to discuss that in a couple of slides. The next slide is just a map. This may not look like anything, but this is a heat map. Miranda has been working with this, and we actually have some software now where we can dig into data. We can look at this heat map, and we can say, okay, here's all of our work orders for alley cleanups. And we can zoom down into that and start to actually see the work orders, when they were submitted, how long it took us to get it cleaned up. and start really taking that data and putting it to use. We've never had that before, and it's a very complicated piece of software, and she's just taken off with it. So we're proud to see that. We're going to be able to use that not only with that, with our front yard collections, just a way that we can take data, be better at what we do, and proud of that. I just wanted to show you that map. I wish that we had the software up where we could show you and zoom in at what all it'll do, but it's amazing. Neighborhood cleanup enhancements, our roll-off program that this council approved last year as an additional program to our solid waste group, is now about to finally go into fruition. We talked about supply chain issues. We have looked all over the country for roll-off trucks, and everyone says we're out. It's 300 days minimum to get one built. It is. We've looked for used ones. We've looked for chassis that we could build one on. We've looked, hey, can y'all weld something together to, we've looked at everything. And Mr. National Fleet Manager of the Year, Hall of Fame, said, he called me on Friday and said, I found 2, they're in Tempe, Florida. And I said, secure those now. He called back that night and he said, they sold. The next morning he called me and said, I found 2 more. They're in Tampa, Florida. So they got those secured. We're working with purchasing now, and we should have our 2 trucks. Our roll-off containers are already in. We have 24 of those. The goal is to have those out on our cleanup week leading into Earth Day, and we can share more with that later, but we're looking forward to that process and getting those out where the neighborhoods can actually use them. We won't have a full program yet because we don't have the employees to staff the residential portion of it. We'll roll that into it later when we have staffing.
How many roll-off containers, Donnie?
24.
24.
24 of them. They are sitting and waiting in our yard to be loaded up and put to use, so we're excited about that.
And that program would look like once every 3 months your neighborhood would have a roll-off parked here for a week, and you could put large items of trash. I mean, I'm making something up. I don't know what it is, but
yeah, there's two portions to that program. One would be that residents would be able to request it at their residence. We could take it to their residence, drop it off, give it to them for 24 hours. They could put whatever they wanted in there as long as it met the requirements, and we'd come pick it up the next morning and take it away. That part's going to have to be on pause until we have staff. The second part is to use it in neighborhood cleanups, or use it to say if the Boy Scouts wanted to have a cleanup, they could call and say, hey, we'd like to have 6 roll-offs in this neighborhood. We already had a couple of requests already that have come in. I can't remember off the top of my head of, hey, we just need 2 of them. Well, East Ridge is one. We need just a couple of those once a month in a location that we can use. We can accommodate that now once we get the equipment. These are non-CDL trucks. It does not require a CDL driver to take it out there. So we could even have our utility workers delivering these roll-offs. So 2 phases to it, the neighborhood cleanups or any kind of large cleanup initiative that we can put these either all around the city or confined into one small area to help with the cleanup.
are you ready for the council to start talking about that, like to neighborhoods and saying to neighborhoods, if you want to organize a cleanup and you want to request the roll-offs, the number to call is?
Yes, and we are working on a schedule, and I can get that to you, that would show like what months we're going to have an open weekend for that, depending on how we're going to do our residential. But I say, yeah, getting the word out now is not a problem. Our trucks are about 4 weeks away, so they might need to know that. Sometimes there's a delay with that, so maybe 4 to 6 weeks before we can actually start putting them out. We have 2 trucks now, but those trucks are used for other roll-offs that are for street sweepings and different things, but we can make it happen.
And I think the important thing on the roll-offs, one important thing is we don't want them sitting at our yard.
Yeah.
Right.
If they're not being used for a community cleanup or for a residential cleanup where the residence has it dropped off at their house, we're going to pre-position them in certain parts of town on vacant lots or on lots owned by the city so that people in that area can use them. And we want to target the location of those somewhere adjacent to or approximate to where illegal dumping typically happens. So they can be a resource that can help reduce the illegal dumping in our community.
So what number should they call, Donnie, if they're interested in getting more info?
Ricky, somebody?
The solid waste office is 378-6813.
378-6813.
Call now.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to make sure, because I can go look up solid waste too, but you may want to direct them internally.
Sure.
So I just thought, well,
Sure.
we'll ask you specifically for that number.
Yeah. We'll accommodate it somehow. We'll start figuring out how to get these out there and get them put to use. Next slide's our camera system. I just wanted to put some pictures on here to show, they're installing some cameras. There's a camera location that's out there. These are not just small pin cameras. These are the real deal. And we have some that are portable as well. But the reason for this slide is you see traffic operations here. They're out doing this. To tackle illegal dumping, it takes more than just one group of people. We have traffic, we have police, we have code enforcement, building safety, public works, solid waste, city management's office, the city attorney is involved in those meetings, the city secretary is involved in those. We have so many people that are working together toward one common goal, and this kind of just shows that with guys from traffic out putting up and monitoring cameras out there. So I just wanted to show that. The next page, I do have some camera statistics. In our illegal dumping areas where cameras are located, we have seen a decrease in the amount and the frequency of those. We've captured 42 cases on camera. We have 35 of those filed. The reason that not all of them are filed is because sometimes you can't read the license tag, or sometimes they don't have a license tag. But there have been, a number of those that have been filed. We have 10 locations out in the field, and moving forward, we still plan to move our portable cameras around and chase those locations as they appear. When we see a frequented area where we go up and put signs up that say it's monitored by video surveillance, and we put a camera up. And generally it stops. We have a location that is frequented, or it was, and I'm not going to name the location, but we put a camera up and we put 3 signs there. And the area that we were having, one time we had to take 3 trucks, spend all day cleaning it up. It stopped. So it's working if the message is getting out. Now, they're putting it somewhere else, and that's what we want to find with our push buttons. So, and that's it. I know that was a little bit longer than what I planned. I told Mr. Miller I'd be 10 minutes, but me saying I'm going to be 10 minutes is probably always just not the truth. So I'm sorry about that. But if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Questions?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you, to the job that you and your team are doing, especially to Alan and Justin. And, I seem to talk to those individuals on a regular basis somewhat because I don't know why I get all the trash issues for some reason. But you guys are always been very good to help whatever issue that I have. And I want to say thank you for bringing your key employees to this meeting because I think that's important. Thank you for looking at the pay raises, and then also thank you for the cross-training because the end result is what? Better customer service, and that's what we're all focusing on, as a city. So I appreciate everything that you're doing, Donnie.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Smith, did you have comment?
Yes, I do. When 4 of us were elected to the council, all but Cole, there were a lot of complaints about we need to clean up the city. And this program is helping do that. It's come a long ways. We may not ever get there 100%, but it's come a long ways. Second comment is I've always been taught that a picture's worth 1,000 words. Thank you.
That's why I put those in there, ever for you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Stanley, you have a question?
Thank you,
or
Mayor.
comment?
Yes, so it is working. Frida.pal@amarillo.gov is where I send all of my trash concerns from citizens, so that is probably why you're getting those. On a serious note, 311, I was just curious how that might interact with what you've got going, and I know we got an update on that maybe a month and a half ago. Are we still looking for that to be up and active here? Was it end of the summer?
Yes. That's what we're looking at, and one of the big challenges there is, just like everything else, to an extent, supply chain contracts, putting contracts together. But it will be another tool for people to report that pile of trash. It can either corroborate what we're getting with our push button inside the side loaders, or it can be information that we don't have or in a location that our trash trucks don't run.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and to add to that, even what Councilmember Powell said, it's important for you guys to communicate what you see too. All the eyes that can help us with what they see out there makes a big difference for us too. So I know that Stephanie is constantly busy sending us stuff every day that she gets, and that just helps us because we need to know what's out there. So
Well, the one thing from my experience, just briefly, is I've had 2 or 3 instances that have gotten sent to you, and there's no follow-up needed. Like, I don't necessarily go and check the next day or anything. You guys have taken care of anything that I've brought to your attention that very day. And so really appreciate the service on it. It's definitely customer service working with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Our motto is just pick it up. Just go get it. Why wait?
Okay, I got a few comments, but I got to write that motto down because that's just good. First is a compliment to you, Mr. City Manager, just that inside the staff you are developing leadership like Donnie brings to solid waste, and there are other departments that I'm seeing this leadership in too. But he leads off complimenting his team. He compliments, Ricky, compliments Alan. He brings the ladies from the department to develop them, give them an opportunity to see how all the pieces fit together. So I want to compliment you on your leadership that's developing leaders like Donnie, because it's spreading organizationally. And that's what results in better customer service and better performance for each of our departments is that. So I wanted to start. It's a shout out to you, Donnie. It's also a shout out to you, Jared. And I wanted to tell you that change is invigorating. So if you're not driving change in your department, then, the only kind of tree that never changes is a dead one. So I as a council member, I expect you guys to be driving change, because that shows me that we're growing and improving. It's hard work, but I appreciate that on behalf of the citizens, the change that you're driving. I also appreciated just seeing in your update how much data you guys are gathering versus the point, to Howard's point of, we've been working on this for a long time. And one of the first things you needed traction on was data. So, people were saying there was a problem, but we weren't measuring it. We didn't have a way to solidify what the problem was. And so we didn't know if we were making it better or worse by what we were trying. And you guys have created systems and invested in software and invested in people that can understand and make the benefit of that software into actual data, because what you measure is what you value, or you value what you measure, and what you say, what's valuable to you, that's what you can achieve and perform on. If you're not measuring it, you can't do that. So I'm with Howard in just recognizing, wow, we've come a long ways, and I'm very pleased as somebody who's been a part of that process to see the reports that you guys are putting together and just the platform that gives you to jump off of to improve customer service in this area. Was that everything? There were so many things to say. I thought we were making great progress on. I wanted to thank Alan for his service on the innovation team. It's a big commitment. Again, I know that coach has you guys meeting weekly, and it's exciting to me to know that our team is getting Harvard coaching every single week for the next 10 months on how to do that better. And a lot of the do that better is public engagement. It's listening to citizens, it's involving citizens, and it's meeting customer service needs of citizens. So yeah, we're grateful to the Bloomberg Foundation for investing in that opportunity for our staff. And I'm excited about being a part of Earth Day. So I would like to request more information about that event, and that it not come to us just 24 hours ahead of time, but could you get it on our calendar with enough notice that we could participate?
April 22nd is the day. That's a Friday. We're actually going to put our roll-offs out beginning that Monday, and we're going to collect them all week long, and we're going to find, just like we did last time, strategic locations to put those in conjunction with the neighborhood planning groups, with word we get from people like Bobji, where they need those roll-offs. We'll have them out all week that week and collecting them ahead of the hand collection that will come on Earth Day, where the volunteer groups get out and pick it up by hand. So. And
I assume communications is working so that maybe we have a map where citizens could see where those rollouts are going to be citywide, and that touts you guys and the fact that we have 24 of these and we're participating in this big event. It's just that last 2% that lets them know here's where it is. Like if you're cleaning out stuff, spring cleaning, this would make it easier for you than having to go to the landfill with what you're cleaning out.
And we can get something back to you prior to that event. So
Mayor, what we'll do is we'll send you all of council information. We'll communicate to our community, but also I'd like to do is have a brief presentation on April 12th, and where our solid waste team can just say, here's all the events, here's all the things that are planned for Earth Day, which is going to take place 10 days from now. So it's April 12th, April 12th is our first meeting in April. April 22nd is the event on a Friday, and we will let you know, here's the plan of events, Here's where things are going to be, and answer any questions council has. Here's our partners that we're working with on this, because there's going to be neighborhood groups. It's going to be Bob G. and his team. There's going to be other teams that are going to be working on it. So a lot of events going on. It's going to be a neat deal.
The final thing I wanted to say is that you're putting those cameras out and the signage down around the cameras saying this area is under surveillance. You know, I don't know what else is on the sign. I assume it says you can be, you know, get a citation, cost you money if you illegally dump here. It is an education tool. So yes, probably those piles of trash are going other places, but there's a percentage of people that are just like, I had no idea.
Yes.
I would never want to dump illegally. I would never want to be at risk of getting a citation. And so, you know, small steps toward making the change. It's not just about relocating. Okay, I've got to find a different, stealthier place to dump a big dump like that. Maybe some of that's happening, but some of it's happening educationally
Yes.
also.
I agree.
So good job
Thank
on
you.
that. Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you for
Thank
the
you, Don.
compliments. They're very much appreciated.
Very well earned. Last item on our work session agenda is to request future agenda items or any reports from the city manager. Anything from council on that?
No, ma'am.
Mayor Pro Tem? Okay. No? Okay, great. Let's do the consent agenda then. Anything there that needs to come off for questions or more discussion? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Yes, Mayor, we do. I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by the Mayor Pro Tem and seconded by Councilman Sauer to approve the items on the consent agenda. All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes with a 5-0 vote. At this time, I'd like to take a short recess. The city manager and I need to step to the Civic Center just to do an alcohol awareness welcome. They're having a community meeting over there, APD and some other community partners, and then step back. So if we could take our bathroom break right now, and probably we'll be gone about 10 minutes, then we'll come back and go to work on the action items on our agenda. So with that, we are taking a recess. Yeah, this is not something new. Okay, I'm going to call us back to order, and somebody need something? We're good? Okay, call us back to order, and we will go back starting at non-consent agenda item 3A. Mr. City Manager?
All right, Mayor, thank you very much. Apologize for keeping y'all waiting. But we have just a handful of things on the non-consent agenda. First up, we have Kyle Sneeder-John to come talk about the capital improvement program. Kyle?
Thank you. This, got turned back on. All right. So, yeah, absolutely. Mayor, Council, thank you for having me. Kyle Sneeder-John, the Director of Capital Projects and Development Engineering, and we're here to talk about the FY 21-22 Capital Improvement Plan, or the CIP, as we like to call it. This is our 5-year planning and guidance document for capital investments and capital projects over the next 5 years. That being said, the year one of this 5-year plan is formally approved in the budget, and then years 2 through 5 are the guidance part and the planning part of this document that help us understand the goals and objectives, and even incentivize certain goals and objectives for our departments as we move along. We base all of these projects upon past things, past initiatives, past documents, past planning documents, our master planning documents, our blueprint for Amarillo, individual conversations that we have with council members, as well as our department heads bring forward projects that they have those conversations with individual community members, their goals and objectives in their master planning documents, and those types of items. And that's kind of that pile of books there that symbolizes all those things that we use to build upon this program. It also puts our department heads in a proactive stance so that they can anticipate what needs and objectives might be out there, but also understand the goals and objectives of the council and the community, and move those projects forward that way. The next step for this document is an ordinance approval. Today is the first reading of our ordinance that approves this document. We'll do a second reading on March 22nd. The departments are already actively implementing the projects that are represented in year one. Those technically were approved in October 1 under the current budget, and the departments are already implementing those projects. And then very, very quickly, we will be starting. I don't think Debbie outlined the full budget schedule in her update, but the CIP and the process for CIP follows along that budget schedule, and we will be starting that probably on the 22nd when we're looking for the full approval of this one. We'll be starting right immediately after that on next year's CIP planning process. Had some very good input from individual council members through this process, and appreciate those things, and we look forward to making some, probably, I wouldn't say necessary changes, but maybe modifications or different ways of presenting certain information as we look into the next cycles of this CIP, because it is a living, breathing document, and just about the time we approve one, we're moving on to the planning processes of the others and those changes. And so appreciate those comments and questions that I've gotten so far. This document is available to the general public. It's out on the city's website. It's under the finance department's webpage, along with the annual budget, and we feel like that's a pretty logical place to put it, even though I'm bringing it forward out of the capital department. That's where we should put all that information there together. And so under the finance department, it's called, the tab is financial information, and it has our annual budget as well as the CIP out and available for public consumption and public use. It's labeled draft right now, so is the one in front of you. And then when we get that approved, we'll make that revision to the approved document. Any specific questions on the CIP plan? Thank you very much. First reading.
So if we don't have questions, council, do we have a motion with regard to approving this item?
Mayor, we have a public hearing.
Public hearing. Of course, thank you. At this time, we will open this matter for a public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak for, on, or against this matter may do so at this time. Is there anyone present who wants to speak for, on, or against item 3A? See no one. We'll close the public hearing. And now, if someone has a motion.
Yes, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 7965, approving and adopting the 5-year community investment program for fiscal year 2021-2022 through fiscal year 2025-2026.
Second.
It's been moved by the Mayor Pro Tem and seconded by Councilmember Sauer to approve item 3A, the CIP program for fiscal year 21-22. Any further discussion or questions about the motion? Okay, all of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes with the 5-0 vote. I'm laughing because Stephanie has started putting these in my stack, and they're still not working. So it's not your fault, Stephanie or Johnny or whoever's doing that. Y'all are doing a great job. It's all on me. Okay, item 3B, Mr. City Manager.
All right, Mayor. Items 3B and 3C are connected. We have Brady Kendrick, Planner 2, here to present the items. They are associated or will facilitate, these rezonings will facilitate a car wash that will be adjacent to a convenience store at Amarillo Boulevard and Mirror. Brady.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This ordinance is the rezoning of lots 6 through 8, Block 16, Morningside subdivision, in addition to the city of Amarillo, in Section 156, Block 2, A&M Survey, Potter County, Texas, plus 1/2 of all bounding streets, alleys, and public ways. The change from multiple family District 1 to general retail district. The vicinity is Amarillo Boulevard and Muir Street, and the applicant is Greg Mitchell for Jamal Enterprises LP. The adjacent zoning consists of heavy commercial district to the north, multiple family District 1 and general retail district to the east, and multiple family District 1 in all other directions. And the applicant is requesting the change in order to develop the tract. These 3 lots and the 3 lots to the north with a car wash. The 3 lots to the north are set to be considered with the next item on the agenda and are only being considered separately due to the fact that the 2 tracts are separated by an improved alley and have differing characteristics which warrant separate consideration. If approved, this request and the one associated with the 3 lots to the north would be part of a unified development site. The request would conform with the neighborhood unit concept of the development, and when considering the location of the applicant's tract and existing zoning and development patterns in the area, the Planning and Zoning Commission is of the opinion that if approved, the change in zoning would not result in a zoning pattern that is new to this area, and with existing area and zoning development patterns is a logical continuation of this pattern in the area. Notices were sent to property owners as required by state law, and 1 comment was received which did not express opposition to the request. Considering the just mentioned, the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval as presented with a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Brady. Questions or comments from the council?
Yes. Brady, so I did not have the opportunity to drive this area. Is this going to be on the west side of Mirror Street?
Yes, this is on the west side of Mirror, directly across from that Toot and Totem.
Okay.
That's on the east side.
I know exactly where it is. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions for Brady? Thank you, Brady. At this time, we'll open a public hearing on this matter. Anyone present who wishes to speak for, on, or against item 3B may do so at this time. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 7966, rezoning lots 6 through 8, Block 16, Morningside subdivision, in addition to the city of Amarillo in Section 156, Block 2, A, B, and M, Survey, Potter County, Texas, plus 1/2 of all bounding streets, alleys, and public ways to change from multiple family District 1 to general retail district in the vicinity of Amarillo Boulevard and Mirror Street.
Second.
It's been moved by the Mayor Pro Tem and seconded by Councilmember Smith to approve ordinance number 7966. Any discussion or questions on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The matter passes with a 5-0 vote. Moving on to agenda item 3C. Mr. City Manager.
Brady, it's up to you again.
All right. Ordinance 7967 is a rezoning of all of lots 3 and 4 and the remaining portion of Lot 5, Block 16, Morningside subdivision, in addition to the City of Amarillo in Section 156, Block 2, A&M Survey, Potter County, Texas, plus 1/2 of all bounding streets, alleys, and public ways, the change from heavy commercial district to general retail district. The vicinity is Amarillo Boulevard and Muir Street, and the applicant is Greg Mitchell for Jamal Enterprises, LP. The adjacent zoning consists of light commercial district to the north, multiple family district 1 to the south, general retail district to the east, and heavy commercial district to the west. Adjacent land uses consist of a vacant home to the south, a convenience store to the east, a muffler and radiator shop to the west, and an auto parts store to the north. And as was just mentioned in the previous case, this is related to creating a unified development site for a car wash. The Planning and Zoning Commission found that the request conformed with the neighborhood unit concept of development for these lots and also the future land use and character map. The Planning and Zoning Commission also notes that while heavy commercial would allow for the applicant's proposed use by right, downzoning the general retail district to have uniform zoning for the site would also potentially have a positive impact to the neighborhood, as general retail zoning would eliminate some land uses that are allowed in heavy commercial that may not be considered compatible with nearby single-family homes to the south, such as wholesale, petroleum storage, bars, machine shops, etc. Considering the just mentioned, the Planning and Zoning Commission believed that this is a logical continuation of development and zoning patterns in the area, and public notices were sent and no comments were received on this request. And as such, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval with a unanimous vote.
Okay. Any questions for Brady, council? At this time, we'll open a public hearing on this item. Anyone who wishes to speak for, on, or against item 3C may do so at this time. Is there anyone? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 7967, rezoning all of lots 3 and 4 and the remaining portion of lot 5, block 16, Morningside subdivision, in addition to the City of Amarillo in Section 156, Block 2, A&M Survey, Potter County, Texas, plus 1/2 of all bounding streets, alleys, and public ways to change from heavy commercial district to general retail district in the vicinity of Amarillo Boulevard and Muir Street.
Second.
It's been moved by the Mayor Pro Tem and seconded by Councilmember Sauer to approve ordinance number 7967. Any further questions or discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes with the 5-0 vote. With that, we've come to the end of our agenda for the action items, and so I would ask the city attorney if he would read our dismissal language for executive session, please.
Yes, ma'am. Pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, closed session of the Amarillo City Council was announced on March the 8th, 2022 at 2:50 p.m. under the following authority. Section 551.071, consult with an attorney on a matter in which the attorney's duty to the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct conflicts with this chapter. Section 551.072, discuss the purchase, exchange, sale, lease, or value of real property. A public discussion of such would not be in the best interest of the city's bargaining position. Section 551.072.4, discuss the employment evaluation of public officer or employee. Section 551.087, discuss commercial or financial information received from an existing business or business prospect with the city's negotiating for a location or retention of a facility, or for incentives the city is willing to extend, or financial information submitted by the same. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we're adjourned to executive session.